This is Goku-san DBZ and welcome back for a new top 10 list. This time around it's going to be a special top 10 list, me personally ranking for me 10 of my personal favorite films of all time involving one of actually my top favorite actors of all time, and that is of course Will Smith. He is somebody I've always watched. I've watched a good chunk of his filmography. I've seen probably 85% of all films he has ever done. I've definitely gone out of my way more than many other probably fans to try to watch. Eventually, I want to see everything he's ever done. Take some time, but eventually I'll get to it. But this is a list of my personal top 10 favorite films that he's done now. Doesn't mean necessarily has to be where he is the major number one character. He could be a supporting character, which also qualifies. But he has to be, the point is, a character, one of the main characters in the film. First, I'm going to give 3 honorable mentions and then 3 dishonorable mentions before I get with the top 10. So let's get this out of the way. First up, the honorable mentions, and I'm going to mention the years that these films were released as well. First up, honorable mentions released in 1995 was the original Bad Boys. I have 50-50 opinions on Bad Boys 2. Bad Boys, I haven't seen the newest one yet. Coming at next honorable mention is a film probably not too well known overall. It's a great film known as 7 Pounds, released in 2008. It's an interesting film, and it does have definitely a sad ending to the film. I won't mention spoilers, though. It's a film I honestly recommend people check out. If you haven't checked it out, it's definitely an interesting film, one of his less well-known films as well. Last of the honorable mentions, released in 2001, the biopic film he did where he played Muhammad Ali, and that is Ali, is the last honorable mention. 3 dishonorable mentions, 3 specific films I'm not a fan of. First up of the 3 is Men in Black 2. I just don't like Men in Black 2. I felt it was a drastic, huge dive in quality, overall picture wise. It didn't get me. I just couldn't really get into it as much. I'll be honest, I like Men in Black 3 more than Men in Black 2 by a pretty good margin, but still not one of my top favorites. Um, Other 2 dishonorable mentions are a film called Shark's Tale. Not a film fan of it. The weird CGI designs of like the fish and everything just didn't care much for. Uh, and the last honorable mention also starring his son Jaden Smith, which couldn't act his way out of a wet paper bag for the most part. After Earth is the last dishonorable mention, which in my opinion is in the top 3, of course, worst M. Night Shyamalan movies. And it just was not a good film. Coming in at number 10 is definitely going to be a controversial pick, I'm sure. He was a supporting character in this film rather than the main star, though still he was in a major role as the character Deadshot. So now you know. Coming in number 10, favorite film involving Will Smith is Suicide Squad. Yes, I'll admit, it's a guilty pleasure movie of mine. As I've mentioned before, it's a major guilty pleasure movie. I have those definitely in comic book films and video game movies. And yeah, Suicide Squad is my 10th favorite film involving Will Smith. Next, coming at number 9 is the only tie on the list. It's between more of a comedy and a really good, I think, drama. Both films released in the mid 2000s. The first one was released in 2004, and it is the romantic comedy Hitch. I personally liked it. Even though I'm not a big fan of romantic comedies, I will say I actually did enjoy Hitch. I thought the comedic aspects and stuff, I thought Will Smith was really good, spot on with his comedy in the film. Definitely better than some comedies I've seen of the 2000s involving him. The other one is a good drama involving well, his real life son, Jaden Smith, when he was just a little kid. But it was definitely a touching film in the emotional aspects. Tied at number 9 is the film The Pursuit of Happiness, which, if you have not seen the film, I actually do recommend checking out The Pursuit of Happiness. It's definitely a Joel film, I feel, in his filmography. Coming in number 8 is more of a nostalgia factor, probably more of a guilty pleasure film like number 10, but also has nostalgia, and I'll admit I really like the soundtrack and the main theme done by, of course, Will Smith. And that is sort of a steampunk. This really was the first movie I ever saw that was steampunk that I really got into, and yeah, it's still my 10th favorite Will Smith film. At one time it was higher, to be fair. Coming in at number 8, released in 1999, is the film Wild Wild West, which, of course, given it's steampunk, should be obvious. Next, coming in at number 7 is a underrated film, I feel, in his entire filmography, released in 2000. I guess he was more of a supporting character rather than the main character, but a great story overall, I feel, drama-wise. And I just, in general, I think it has just a certain enjoyment I really like. It's one of my personal favorite sports type films, and it revolves around, of course, golf. Or more specifically, the film is called The Legend of Bagger Vance. It's definitely a criminally underrated film that Will Smith is in, and I do recommend more people check out The Legend of Bagger Vance. It's definitely a film worth watching. Next, coming at number 6, a film I feel that sadly gets overlooked now. You want to talk about really good post-apocalyptic type movies? This would probably be in my top 3 or top 5 favorite post-apocalyptic movies of all time. It's a great film, and it does definitely relies more on the acting chops of Will. And it is nice to see when he's not just doing strictly action movies, that he tries to add more drama to his character arc, and this specific movie relies heavily on his acting, along with a great German Shepherd. And that film was released in 2007, based on, of course, the book, and that is coming at number 6 favorite Will Smith movie, I Am Legend, which I love this movie. The more I've watched over the years, the more it's actually gone up in the ranks. At one time, probably been more of an honorable mention, but now it's my 6th favorite Will Smith movie. Take that as you want. Coming at number 5 is a great film that was released in 2015, a great biopic film that shows the dangers that some people went through at one time decades ago, clashing with, of course, the NFL, and about this doctor that wanted to bring out and show the dangers and stuff that the athletes were in, but the NFL, obviously higher ups, did not want to recognize it, and they felt that this study and if this info came out, it would be a threat to their money and power. It's a great biopic film, though, and I have a serious, somewhat obsession, if you will, over biopic films. Coming at number 5 is called Concussion. It is definitely a good film. If you're a sports fan, a football fan, or just a Will Smith fan, it's a film I highly recommend, whether you're into just Will Smith or if you like good dramas, you like sports movies, biopics. This is just a really good, solid film overall. Definitely the acting is good. That is one thing I'll say. I really think this is probably one of the best films in definitely the last several years from Will Smith in the acting area. Coming at number 4, released in 1993, was probably one of the only times that Will Smith actually tried a different style of acting, really different from anything he's done ever since. It was definitely one of his earliest films, but it was definitely a superb movie and criminally underrated. Very few Will Smith fans that I've met or talked to actually know of this film, unless they've studied all his movies and followed him for years like myself. Surprisingly, not many people know about this movie. It is called 6 Degrees of Separation. If you've not seen 6 Degrees of Separation, please do yourself a service and check the movie out. It is definitely worth your time, and it is a great film, and it really shows the kind of acting ability and stuff that Will Smith has, and sometimes I feel he just doesn't push himself like he should. And films like this really prove why he could do even in his early days in acting. Coming in at number three is another nostalgia factor movie. Released in 1997, of course, he did the cover of the theme song and everything as well. But many people have this right at the tops of their list. Number three for me, coming at number three, is the original Men in Black, which is definitely quite enjoyable and will always be one of my favorite Will Smith movies, just for the sheer fact, one, it's a great film. Tommy Lee Jones and him have really good chemistry in the film, I feel, and it definitely, I liked the more like comedy centric aspects they went with the aliens and stuff, unlike a lot of movies at the time were going more serious and dark and stuff with alien films. It was nice to see the instead turn they went with it, and come on, the Men in Black theme by Will Smith is just perfect. Coming in at number two is, I feel, another underrated, though I'm sure a lot of people have seen this movie, but I feel it's really underrated. It is probably one of my top favorite science fiction films of the 2000s. And that is a film I feel is easily one of Will Smith's best. Definitely action movies. It's a great science fiction film that shows the dangers of artificial intelligence. And yes, one of the supporting roles in this film is none other than the one known for the meme, "You can do it," or "Just do it." Yes, Shia LaBeouf has a supporting actor role in this film. It's great though. It's called I, Robot. Comes in at number two favorite Will Smith movie of all time. Coming in number one should be no surprise by now. I love this film, always have. It's one of my favorite Spielberg films of all time, along with Emmerich, of course. Coming at number one, released in 1996, this is the film that really made Will Smith the humongous star he would become. And it's thanks to this movie. And that is, of course, coming at number one favorite film from Will Smith, Independence Day. Comes in at number one. And nothing has ever been able to challenge Independence Day as my all time favorite Will Smith film. But with that said, this was my top 10 personal favorite Will Smith films of all time. Leave a comment below, tell me of the top 10 films on my list, which do you personally like the most? Which is your personal favorite Will Smith movie? Which do you feel is maybe one of his worst? Like I also mentioned some dishonorable mentions. But I'm curious to actually hear what people's opinions are on Will Smith movies like myself. Have you seen any of the films that I consider underrated? If you haven't, of course, as I said, I highly recommend it. And if you end up watching any of these films, after you watch it, return to this video and leave a comment and tell me what your thoughts were on the film. But seriously, before I end this video, please do yourself a service and check out 6 Degrees of Separation. Seriously, it's a great film. It's a film that definitely deserves much more watching than it gets, unfortunately. And also, if you haven't seen iRobot, please just watch it. It's a great science fiction film. And I always appreciate a good sci-fi movie. But anyways, I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.